Someone's making noises in the back. Doing a live to share a bit about this Awaken to Freedom Detox course. I know many of you have asked me a lot of questions about it. Some of you are jumping on this next round, and some of you have already been a part of it or seen me talk about it quite a lot. So there may be still some goodies because I'm going to share some personal reflections in this live as well, and maybe they'll have some time for Q&A. Although I'm going to some musical stuff soon tonight, later. But for right now, on this Awaken to Freedom Detox course, firstly, the first run we did of this was in January, and that's when I was after I did a 10-day dry fast, and many people were asking questions, about all kinds of different processes and approaches to this whole kind of revolution of food and fasting and healing, and a less is more attitude when it comes to consumption. Less is more is such a beautiful axiom because it applies to so many things in our experience, and it applies to very much food, but really can overflow into all of the different relationships we have, because relationships often can be a mix of consumptive and creative, and when we are imbalanced in any of those dynamics, then that's when things become challenging or we have suffering. And I know on my own path and what it seems like for many of us, the topic of food is quite a big one, and there's so many different ways in which we relate with food, and primarily it comes back to an emotional relationship with food, an emotional connection to food. And whether we're in a not so great emotional state or a wonderful emotional state, food often is tied into that in some regard. It is such a foundational, fundamental relationship within this life that we're living. So much of this page is not just about fasting or not eating, not just about constantly cleaning out and becoming almost like OCD with the cleaning out. It's about developing that loving connection and relationship with nourishment and energy, and what really nourishes us and brings us energy, and not so much brings us, because that can be very one-dimensional, but the relationship of energy and how we energize ourselves and move energy, create with energy, nourish with energy, and feel safe with energy in all of different forms. So much of that level 1 course was really hitting all of the foundational lessons and the core formula, I guess you could call it, that I had developed from learning from so many different mentors and teachers and paths within that space of food, and fasting protocols and detoxification processes and approaches, and how we go about that process of awareness, detoxification or elimination, hydration, regeneration, and then which really is what equating to true healing, and recognizing it as a cyclical process and a process that goes in its natural phases. And one thing to remember is we already have these natural phases within our own rhythm of our body. So when we have this kind of revolution of fasting or detox, this kind of almost like a trend, but really it's all trends are, especially in this time in history, are more so a balancing out process. Because if we've gone too far in one direction, we go on some level too far in the other direction, right? And we find the balance again, where we come back to how many ancient cultures would live most of the time, they would understand the power and benefits of fasting, detoxification, elimination, and finding the balance with nourishment and regeneration and coming into balanced consumption. But if that hasn't been the case, then I know for myself, living my first, say, 20 years of my life, I was trying to find a comfy spot. First 20 years of my life, really not having a great relationship with food, and then the next 10 years kind of being the karmic balancing of that. So depending how many years you've gone with an interesting, relationship with food, it's going to require quite a lot of time. So much of what I had intended with that first course was to put all of the lessons that I had learned through all of these different processes and approaches, from anything from basic like plant-based eating, going to fruitarianism, liquid diets or solid food vacation, dry fasting, and then specifically applying it through a 9-day colon cleanse, which is kind of common. Everyone's talking about colon cleanses these days, but I find conjuncting it with the foundational lessons sets us up for the future, or the long game. It sets us up for a long-term lifestyle shift into more and more of a consideration of what less is more means, and also balancing that within the naturalness of our own life and our own experience, which is not going to be the same for everybody. There is no one formula for everybody. However, the principles of healing are quite similar across the board, and we'll find that the more we are devoted to authentic healing, we'll tend to find that those principles from all of the traditions or all of the different forms or approaches or different teachers or mentors, or Instagram pages or whatever, are going to start crossing over, and that's where we can start connecting the dots, within our own path. So I really feel like this course has a real comprehensive look on many different perspectives and approaches, but it's not the ultimate. There's many other considerations that people could have, about how they'd like to approach it and how they feel they're called to go about it, and how each of you, are on your own path, and it's so individual. And one thing that's important to remember is that it's not really about the food, right? It's the power of our will and the power of our emotional intent and the power of our energy within everything that we do. You can eat all the organic blueberries that you want, but if you are constantly in a place of of guilt with yourself, or condemning others, or hatred about the world, about what's going on, those organic blueberries ain't gonna do a damn thing for you. The energy you bring and the energy that you instill and the energy that you're emitting on a moment-to-moment basis is the foundation to where all healing comes from and all healing comes back to. So although we're approaching this in a practical way of how we can, make shifts, even small shifts in consumptive patterns or behaviors or ways of being, or going through processes of a less is more approach with food consumption, it doesn't mean it's the end-all be-all. It doesn't mean it's going to solve everything for you, but it may be a doorway for that healing and for that deeper, communication with yourself. And, that also could ripple into many other facets of your path. And that's why in level 2 we got into the emotional healing aspect and the relationship dynamic and resolving the charges of our shadow body, which, can be quite daunting. And for me, in many ways, goes hand in hand with the food conversation. So this next run we're doing, I have it set up so that all the recordings are there. So everyone from the first, everyone who's doing it now, you're basically doing it at your own pace because all the recordings are available. But we will be having some group calls with this new group. And the old people can join in too if they want to do another run on it, where we can kind of, address things as they come and address things in a Q&A format, and, have that kind of intimate experience as we're all, navigating these topics together. And, although the course is kind of advanced on some level, it is set up for people as a level 1 introduction. So it's kind of paradoxical there, because we talk about some really advanced topics in this whole conversation, but I feel like anyone who's really willing can understand it and apply it, and really begin to see tangible results quickly. That's really one thing that I noticed in the Telegram group with all the people from the first one, was that there was results happening quite efficiently, and that's really what we're looking for. We want to be able to just kind of, and that was the whole purpose of it, is to distill for me the past 10 years of research and application into a more condensed format, so that the process can be a bit faster, more efficient. Doesn't have to be faster, but efficient for those that may just be coming into it, or maybe have already engaged in a lot of these elements but need are looking for more of some guidance or support. So the course itself is very affordable, and anyone who can access it, just send me a message. There's no limitations there. But even if that's not of interest, applying some of the things on this page that I've shared is just what has to be done. Like if you really want the results, the practice has to be there. There has to be tangible action occurring, even in incremental quantities, but consistently over time. That's how the real results are going to happen. And so if we're looking at healing particular aspects of our physical anatomy, mental, emotional anatomy, then that's very much possible. I've seen literally everything under the sun, when it comes to like physical disease or illness or these things, heal through many of the principles that we've shared in that level and course. And just from the overall intention that there's a desire for healing. If there's a desire, a true, authentic desire for healing, desire that healing is possible. The route and the path and the means and the tools and the environment may differ, but the possibilities of that healing are possible. So that leaves us with the question, if we are aware of aspects of our experience that are bringing suffering in any quantity, it's about the honesty within ourselves to recognize that it is our own actions that have developed that suffering. Yes, we may have co-created that among other beings. There's other people that we may have come in contact with, or organizations or environments that have contributed to that suffering. But if we take the responsibility to see and acknowledge where and how we have developed these challenges in our experience, then that's really the first step for the whole snowball to roll. Because then it's all about, well, what else can I do? How I can't fall any lower than this if I'm willing to take responsibility for where I am now, and now, and now, and now, and again we can see very clearly when there is suffering, how that is manifested. That's one thing I feel, is so important. It's such like a step one, but it's so advanced in so many ways because so many people just look past it. Is just not being aware, or not awareness and self-responsibility or self-honesty on, okay, there's suffering in my experience, or I'm facing a challenge, and somehow being confused as to why it's there. This does not need to be like this. Like we can be aware. It's not that we're going to live in a fairy tale of absolute no pain and suffering. It's that we have now come to a place where if there's pain, we almost instantly know why that is there, right? What have we done? What have we contributed to create that? That's what self-responsibility and true self-honesty and awareness is to me, is that if there is pain, if there is something arising, we are, more and more efficiently becoming aware on exactly why that is and how that's manifested. And that's how we can then rectify it, right? It doesn't mean that we are going to be perfect and never create, pains for our experience. That's the nature of this lesson realm of the human experience. But there is a clarity as to why things are arising. That once that has developed in your being as a ongoing self-investigation or self-audit or self-awareness, to know, okay, I have created this pain in these ways. This is why this pain is here. Then, there's a beauty to that. Then we can actually be more flexible in our actions, because sometimes we will want to indulge or do things that maybe aren't so conducive for, the well-being of our bodies and things. But at least we're aware now, right? And so when the time comes that we've gone too far, or things are just now too painful, that's often when the call to action, occurs, right? So yeah, that's going to be different for each of us, and all of the above, right? But so that's the kind of gist of what this detox course is about. It's not just a detox course, to be honest. I mean, it really is covering a full spectrum approach on how we are going through not only the cleaning out, but also the rebuilding and regeneration, and finding a balance within those cycles, because those cycles will come many times, right? If we're going into deeper and deeper layers of cleaning. I mean, I'm 10 years in this process and I'm still healing particular things, but the progress is noticed. We can begin to notice the clear progress. Not that we're running or rushing to some destination, but it's that we're taking responsibility for the fact that if we are feeling pains and feeling dis-ease in ourselves in any capacity, then there's a willingness to rectify that, if that's the desire. That has to be the desire. So yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions. Well, there hasn't been any questions yet, but if there's any questions on what I've shared on the course or otherwise, on just related to this process, I mean, many of you are following this page probably for a reason. So thank you for being here. But yeah, if there's questions, then I'll cover them. And if there's anything else that comes to mind. This time we're living in is filled with a lot of energy, right? There's a lot of things going on. People are kind of stressed, and it's like we got over the whole pandemic phase, and people kind of go through this initial opening, and then we feel like it calmed down, but it doesn't really calm down, right? Because then you go into this new stage, which sometimes is even more daunting. People may feel a bit lost or confused or kind of in PTSD shock from what's just occurred. So, being able to take care of the relationship we have with all of our existence, and in this case particularly food and our emotions and our environment and nature, well, that's going to be so paramount to the navigation of this next phase, because we're dealing with very basic level foundations. If that foundation isn't strong, it's very easy to get toppled over when worldly events are getting more heightened or energies are more spiked. There's things that are more confusing, all these things going on. We're not sure how to deal with all of these topics. If the foundation is strong, we're not moved. We're like a mountain. We're not moved by the coming and goings of this and that. We realize our eternal nature, which is surely eternal, and in that, the movements of this and that over the weeks and months and days is not really of a concern, because we can see the bigger picture. There's a zooming out. But if the foundation isn't strong, that anxiety and stress and that the cortisol levels and the adrenals, everything is constantly kind of going. So there isn't ever really an ability to just zoom out, because that like flight or fight response is constantly going, and it keeps kicking in every time the new headline or some situation, or in Canada we had this big network outage today, so people start going off in their head about what's going on. It's the Great Reset, they're doing a cyber attack, I don't know, like all these things start coming up. But it's we got to stay level-headed and grounded. Things don't just happen like this. Everything takes its time, and although there's clear situations or happenings that can accelerate that, it doesn't need to move us off center or move us off, this mountain-like stability and peace and ease within these situations. It doesn't have to move us. Now, if it does, then it comes back to that self-responsibility, where we recognize it does not have to be this way. It's on some level a choice that it's happening this way. We are co-creating with the rest of the collective to create this inner anxiety and this whatever. So then that responsibility brings us back and says, okay, well, and instantly when we have that responsibility, we are instantly shown ways, even small ways, like getting up and going and take a walk or something, to relax ourselves and come back into that balance, and then navigate things accordingly, right? Often it's very simple and small things that we can do to make shifts. It's just that when we're in the pressure of overwhelm and stress and adrenals pumping and all that, we think, because it's so overwhelming, we think there's some big solution that's required. And that's just another illusion, another delay mechanism to delay taking action, right? Oh, I got to take this, I got to do all these big steps, I got to make all these big changes. And although small steps can result in bigger shifts, it's all broken down into micro steps and micro stages, and just actions moment to moment. And really just a surrender to the ever-present unfolding of action that will happen on its own if you just sit back and observe rather than try and control and manipulate so strongly. So yeah, hopefully that helps with a lot of things going on collectively. I know we're all engaging in our own way. But yeah, if there's no questions, those coming in, I just shared a lot about this Awaken to Freedom course, and it's ongoing. You can do it at any time. It doesn't have to happen now with this next run, but I'm specifically doing the live calls in this next run with those who are watching the recordings in their own time. So you can send me a message on that, and I can send you the details. But other than that, I feel good with this. Maybe I'll do some more lives on this channel on various topics. If you are new to this page, or even not, I would scroll through the old posts, because there's a lot of good tidbits in there. It's like a blog, this whole Instagram, like I have so many valuable posts there, and on my other page, that you could spend like weeks, months with practicing, let alone me constantly posting new stuff. So that's why I slow down sometimes, because I'm like, wow, we gotta just practice what we have already, and all the other pages I'm sure you're following. But we always have a copious amounts of things to engage, right, and actually practice. So sometimes we got to slow down in our consumption of content and just engage things and start like really putting things into practice, which I'm sure all of you are doing. But healthy reminder. All right. Yeah, you're welcome. Good to have you here. 3 of you, whoever else was here. And I'll leave it at that. Deep love. And if any questions, send me a message and chat soon. See ya.